Alright, so I got these 7 recordings here, and with them, I'm gonna break down and discuss a lot of the RPS, a lot of the theory behind doing block strings, and also talking about the uses of parry and drive impact as a defender, and also how to pressure your opponent when you consider those two options. I'm also going to talk about why Capcom decided to not make rapid cancel lights jail, because I know a lot of people have been talking about that. They're saying like lights should jail like they always did. Like if you do a rapid cancel light into light, it always jails. But we're gonna get into it right now. So, all right. First thing we're gonna do is start with parry. Unless it's a perfect parry, which is a frame perfect parry, it does not affect the frame advantage on a move. Um, but what parry is great for is while parrying, you don't have to block high, low, or cross up or anything. The parry will do it all for you. And every time you successfully parry something, you're rewarded drive impact. I mean drive gauge, not drive impact. So you see at the top gauge, every time I parry something, I'm getting back the drive gauge every time. Where usually when you hold the parry, your drive gauge constantly drains. So there's that. So yeah, the main thing is that you don't suffer, you don't have to block high low, left right, or anything like that. Parry, you're as like an absolute guard. Like you're just gonna parry everything that comes at you, regardless of where you're supposed to guard it. Now the next thing about parry is the pushback. So as you can see here, if I block this, I get pushed back super far. Like we're at a really big distance. But if you parry it, you don't get pushed back as far. So that happens with everything you parry. Everything you parry, you suffer less pushback. So very important to note. The other thing that you can notice is that when I block it, I'm +3, and when I parry, I'm +3. And this is true for everything. So parry does not affect the frame advantage afterward. The frame advantage is still the same. But as we already talked about, the benefit of parrying is that you don't have to guard high, low, or anything, and you also receive less pushback, and you get drive gauge. So many reasons to still use parry aside from frame advantage. But if you parry something frame perfectly, you get a punish. So if you do parry at the perfect timing, the screen will slow down as you saw, and you're able to always punish your opponent. So very important thing about parry is that getting a frame perfect parry means punish. Regular parry, you get all the benefits, just you may not get a punish unless the move is already unsafe. So there's that. If I set the dummy to, for instance, guard, to block only one thing, then he will stop guarding when it stops jailing. So this proves that, you know, this doesn't actually jail. There's a gap there for my opponent to do something since it's getting hit. Whereas if I did a jump in and then I did jab, he blocks both of them because there's no gap. Because the jump in is +7, my jab is 4 frames, so I can still jail after my jump in. But my lights don't jail, and this is pretty uncommon in Street Fighter. Street Fighter, most of the time, your lights always jail into each other and you can rapid cancel them. But we'll talk about why they did that now. So the reason why they did that is because they want you to be able to use the parry and the drive impact and your DP in between those gaps. So when your opponent's pressuring you, you can still parry in between. And if you time the parry, you can get a punish. But if you hold the parry button, like you can hold the parry button as soon as you block something, and it'll come out the next possible moment. So like as soon as I block that light, I'm holding parry, and then I start parrying everything else. But if I try to time the parry perfectly, then I can get a punish. But it is a little difficult. It takes good time. But that's a punish right there. So that's one of the reasons why they're doing that, so that this mind game can take place where the opponent is now able to parry. The other option you have is drive impact. So the armor will kick in and you'll get a full punish right here. So those are two reasons why they're doing that, so that in between those gaps you're able to perform a parry or a drive impact. It also forces the opponent, if they want a frame trap, they have to use lights. So for instance, if I try and press a button right here, I'll get counter hit. And I'm trying to press jab, as you can see, and I'm getting counter hit every time. So by doing lights into each other, you have a frame trap. Now in our next recording, Jamie's gonna do these lights into drive impact. And why is he doing that? Because if as a defender I choose to do this, those 2 extra jabs that he did, when they make contact with my armor and you see Jury flash red, the game also has hit stop every time you make contact with them. It gives you time to react and do a drive pack of your own. And if you perform drive impact second, you'll always win. So, and it can be done very late, as you can see. Like, he had a lot of time to see that I was gonna do drive impact and react accordingly. So, very important. We have recording number 3. Now, recording number 3, Jamie is gonna do jab grab. Common Street Fighter tactic, ticked off. Check him with the jab, grab him. Now, in this Street Fighter, since jabs are mostly negative throughout the cast, as you can see, -2, -1. If you try to tick dodge someone, they can always jab you. Usually they have to break the grab or do something, throw invincible or filling invincible to stop you. In this game though, if he tries to jab grab me, I can always poke him out. If I choose to block though, I would get grabbed, you know, I could try and break it. But the main thing about this is, even though jabs are negative, the tick throw is still very potent, and that's because throw still beats drive impact, and it also beats parry. So right there I tried to parry, and when I try to parry, he gets a punish counter. And when you get punish countered, you lose a block of drive gauge. If you look at the top, you see not only does the throw have a more cinematic camera angle, but I also am losing a block of drive gauge on the last hit of that grab. And the other benefit of getting this kind of grab, of throwing someone out their parry, is that it does increase damage. So if I do drive impact right here, I try to get, you know, I get grabbed, it's doing 1080 damage. You can see at the top. It says 1080 right here. But if I try and do parry with the punish counter grab, he's gonna get a whole 8% more. He's gonna get 800 more damage. So the grab went from 10% to 18% damage, which is pretty significant. So the tick throw is still prevalent, even though they can jab you out. It still is a really good option because it is a counter to 2 of the best defensive options in the game right now, which is parry and drive impact. Managing the drive gauge is pretty important, because when you lose your drive gauge, you lose access to parry, you lose access to drive impact, you lose access to EX moves, and you also can get chipped out, and you take extra block stun. You take 4 frames extra block stun off of everything when you're drive broken. So just so anyone that doesn't know, this is what drive impact, this is what it looks like when you're drive broken. The character looks fatigued, you can no longer do EX moves, you can't parry, you can't do drive impact, and if someone doesn't move, as you saw, he did jab right there. Usually his stand jab is 0, but now I was -4 because I take 4 extra frames of block stun. And just so you can see right here, it was 0 this time. So it's very important to know how you can gain and lose your drive gauge. But this is one of the ways you can lose it. If you get thrown out of your parry, you will lose about 1 gauge, 1 block of drive gauge. Now we get to our 4th recording. So the 4th recording, the Jamie does a super right here. So the reason why he does that is because if I choose to do drive impact, supers break armor. So even if I do it as late as possible, like on that light kick, this super is gonna destroy the armor and you get a full combo. So this is another counter to the opponent flashing red. If you see them flashing red, you can buffer super and your super will beat the drive impact as well. And this is an option you can do even if you're drive broken. So if you find yourself drive broken, you still have access to your super because your super is not tied to your EX moves. So you can still do your super even while drive broken and beat someone's armor. Very important. Just so you can see too, parry will beat this situation, so be careful not to, you have to look to see if they flash blue or red, because doing a parry will be really bad because they're gonna get a lot of bar for parrying an entire like multi-hitting super like Jamie's, because every hit you get some bar back. So I would get so much lead up here and I would get a punish. So very important. So now we got recording number 5. So recording number 5 is Jamie is going to do jab and then his fierce punch. Jamie has a very unique fierce punch. It hits 3 times, and it's pretty significant. Because if the opponent were to do their armor move right there, the armor can only absorb 3 hits before breaking. So this is another way to counter the drive impact, is if you can preemptively perform your strings where if you have multi-hitting attacks, or you know, if you can react to it and perform a fast multi-hitting attack like his stand heavy, it will definitely break their armor. So very important to know that you can break the armor with 3 hits. The armor can only absorb 2 hits. The 3rd hit, it will crack. If we know that the armor can only absorb 2 hits, even while you're playing neutral and you're playing fronties and whatnot, if you think the opponent is going to throw out drive impact in neutral, you can poke at them with multi-hitting attacks. So if your character has a fireball, for instance, most EX fireballs hit twice. So Jamie's gonna land and do drive impact, and since my fireball hits 2 times, that's 2 hits, and my low forward was the 3rd hit. You know, so that's also a way you can while playing neutral, you can beat out drive impact. You can preemptively do attacks that are multi-hit, and if you think it's gonna come out while you're poking, you'll still beat it. Another thing though, since we're here, if, as you can see, like if Jamie were to try and do any other button that's not a jab, you know what I'm saying, if he doesn't rapid cancel with his lights, it will not frame trap. So I can always poke him right here. If he did try to do jab heavy, I can always counter hit him. But if he did jab, I would get hit. So this is part of the RPS in the game. So that's recording number 5. Now, that's pretty much all the recordings we have. Yeah, that does sign the end of it. So that pretty much covers parry and drive impact and rapid cancel lights and frame traps and how to beat this option, how to beat that option, how you should be going about constructing your offense in this game, because everything I just talked about is universal system mechanics. So every character has access to these things for the most part. Maybe not the multi-hitting attacks. Every character has access to everything else that we talked about. So this is something that's gonna happen across the entire cast. So definitely good to know about this. And yeah, hope you enjoyed.